In other words, you really must put together a overall plan. There has to be a vision to what you're doing. We have to think ahead and see what is our plan. What do we want to happen? What do we want Agri to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? What do we want? How do we want manufacturing to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? There has to be a plan, a strategic plan with an end result in sight. Na sinasabi, we're doing all of this para dito tayo umabot. Our GDP will be like this, our output agriculturally will be this many million tons, that we will no longer import this and we have substituted it for local products, etc., etc. So whatever the undertaking is, whatever you are trying to do, whatever you are initiating, that will determine which areas you go to. We still have to think in terms of the greater good, the national interest, the nation building, and that's what will determine where development, where public investment should go. Basta magtulungan tayo. I always used to in my blog, stay safe and be kind, and what I meant is mag-ingat lang and be kind. Magtulungan po tayo dahil hindi natin kahit sinong tao ay hindi kayang malampasan itong krisis natin. Pero pagka nagkaisa tayo, sama-sama tayong babangon muli. So we have a lot to do in terms of agriculture. We have to think about the mechanization of agriculture. We have to build up on the irrigated areas. We have to build up on the market support for our farmers, financial support for our farmers. And when I financial support, I don't mean subsidies. What I mean is the production loans, the acquisition by government of pesticides and fertilizers at a low price and almost given at cost to farmers. All these kinds of things that have actually been done before, that I think we can do again, and I think we can succeed. Secondly, the Build program of President Duterte is a step in the right direction. Infrastructure is always the basis for economic development and activity, and so that's correct. But we have to now think about other things besides the traditional idea of what infrastructure is. Our traditional idea of infrastructure are roads and bridges and buildings and yung physical infrastructure, which is absolutely correct, and we have to do that. However, with the passage of the new, with the evolution of all the new technologies, we now have to include in our basic infrastructure the internet, the digital infrastructure. Yes. That has became even before pandemic. It was already becoming a very important part of our lives. But during the pandemic, it accelerated the process very, very, very much. And so, I think that is probably the biggest priority we have now. Kasi may ginagawa na tayo dun sa physical infrastructure eh. Pero kulang pa yung wala pa tayong nararamdaman na nagbago dito sa digital infrastructure. The other problem that we're going to face that we should include in the prioritization of infrastructure is power generation. We already are hearing news of brownouts in different places, and that's simply because of the lack of power, and also our power is ang kuryente natin masyadong mahal. And it affects the businesses, not local businesses, because they have to pass on that increased cost to the consumers. Therefore, maybe in some cases pricing themselves out of the market, kaya nahirapan sila. Furthermore, when we talk about foreign direct investment, problema din yung kuryente natin kasi pinakamahal dito sa Asia. So, they would like to invest in the Philippines. Lagi hinihikayat natin sila. Doon kayo sa Pilipinas, doon kayo yung mga mayayaman, doon kayo mag-invest sa amin. Yes. And they come back and they say, we would love to, we would like to do something in the Philippines, but your power situation is not good. Masyadong mahal and it's unreliable. Nagba-brownout. So that should be included in when they say build, dapat isama na natin yan sa infrastructure. And now we have a very big problem or challenge. It's not a problem, it's more a challenge in terms of education. Because in education, we now have to change the entire system, at least for the next 2 or 3 years. And so we have to come up again, we go back again to the digital infrastructure, which is necessary. But we also have to do better for our teachers. Our teachers right now, we sometimes forget that when our teachers who are being trained to be teachers or being taught to be teachers, nobody spoke about remote learning or modules that have to be delivered to different people's houses, etc., etc. All of these things, this is all new. And so we have to do more, not only the digital infrastructure in terms of training of our teachers, and also the devices that are going to be needed by students. The load, kahit yung load, kailangan pag-isipan natin kung paano natin sila bibigyan ng pang-load dun sa kanilang pag-aaral. And then the next area that is pretty obvious is healthcare. We really have to do something about our healthcare situation. Our healthcare situation is clearly behind. It's not surprising because if you look at the records, the national government has not built a significant hospital since 1985. And it is good that the kidney center, the heart center, the children's hospital, the lung center, all of these naitayo na at napakinabangan natin during the pandemic. Napapakinabangan natin itong sa pandemic na to. Pero nakikita maliwanag na may kakulangan ang ating healthcare system. And I'm not talking only about the big hospitals, although that's also important. We have to build some bigger hospitals and more of them around the country. We have to man them properly. Wala naman tayong problema. Ang gagaling ng mga nurse, saka doktor, saka medtech natin. So I'm sure they can find jobs there. But also, I'm thinking about the healthcare system aside from pandemic crisis, also in general, that we have to bring healthcare closer to the people. Because if you look at the mortality rates in hospitals, this is what I discovered when I was governor, was that the mortality rates are very high. And I asked, why is that? Because it's so difficult for people to go to the hospital that they do not go. Kasi bago ka pupunta, masakit ang tiyan mo or nasugatan ka or something, para makapunta ka sa hospital o masama ang pakiramdam o baka na COVID ka na nga, bago ka makapunta sa ospital, you have to sino mag-aalaga ng mga bata, magliliba ko sa trabaho, marami nga, tapos kukuha ka, yung pamasahe lang papunta doon, magta-tricycle ka, layo-layo, di ba? So it's not an easy thing to do, and so people only go when it's very bad. By the time they get to the hospital, baka hindi na kaya pagalingin dahil masyado na malubha ang lagay ng pasyente. So we should bring it down. Damihan natin yung mga RHU. The RHUs the rural health units. Dapat bawat barangay or bawat clustered barangay merong RHU na binibisita ng nurse at saka doktor maybe once, twice, 3 times a week kung kailangan, para you see ang rinireklamo ng tao karamihan is yung upper respiratory, yung ubo, hika, TB, ganyan dito sa and lower GI, yung nasira ang tiyan, all of these problems, and buntis, the pregnant women who have to go into give birth. All of these things can be handled in the RHU. So you don't really need to bring them all the way to the hospital. So you can make some space in the hospital, and it's not so hard for ordinary people to get medical treatment. Now, for yung talagang maluba, dalhin mo sa malalaking ospital, baka kailangan ng ICU, etc. That will free up more capability at the secondary and tertiary level care. Yun ang ating dapat matingnan. And then, of course, we have to support our medical health worker, our healthcare workers. This problem, we shouldn't be having this problem. Sana naman di umabot sa ganito na nag-strike yung nurse dahil di na pabayaran ng hazard pay. So, that's fundamental. None of this is going to work unless we give them, I mean, these people have families. Because she's a nurse or he's a doctor. We think of them as doctors, as their fathers, and they are husbands, they are wives, and they are usually the breadwinners. So they have to concern themselves also with their families. So we have to help them in that regard. So all of these things have to be done. I think the main theme, I think, of my proposals for recovery back to basics. We have to go back. Punta tayo sa mga ibang bagay na pagdating naman ng pandemya, na halata ang ating kakulangan. So these are the areas that I think will be important. I don't think that the proper way to go about it and say I will focus my efforts on one area or another. It's who is in need. And besides, if you're in a national position, you have to be thinking about the entire system, and you cannot say that dito muna tayo sa region na ito, dito muna tayo sa island group na ito, because the what we are put, like the technological system, the power systems, the power supply, all of these things, kailangan pambansa yan. You have to do it as a whole. Now there are areas that have fallen behind. And yes, so it's possible that you can give extra assistance, especially in the local government end, to 4th, 5th, 6th class provinces. Medyo hirap pa sila hanggang ngayon. The Mandana's ruling is going to change many things. And so it gives a freer hand to the local government. But it still requires, I believe, that you cannot say that I want to develop one area. You want to develop the entire country. And how do you do that? You do that by increasing maybe the power generation in a certain area. You make sure that the agricultural sector is solid in this area before you start thinking about energy production. In other words, you really must put together a overall plan. There has to be a vision to what you're doing. You cannot just react. When we just react, which is what we have been doing for many years, we're always behind the curve. We have to think ahead and see what is our plan. What do we want to happen? What do we want agri to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? What do we want? How do we want manufacturing to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? Where are the areas? If you analyze the global situation, where are the areas where we can participate and do it successfully? All of these things are how you determine where you put the public investment and under what area. So iba-iba yan. Pag pinag-uusapan ng infrastructure, may mga lugar na kailangan unahin. Pag pinag-uusapan ng power distribution, may mga lugar na talagang kulang pa. Pag we talk about education, yun na nga, ganun din. Yung mga teacher natin, same thing. All the same areas, healthcare, yung walang ka-hospital, o walang RHU man, o walang mga health workers doon. Yan ang mga dapat unahin. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. But you have to always approach these problems at a national level. There has to be a plan, a strategic plan, with an end result in sight. Na sinasabi ko, we're doing all of this para dito tayo umabot. Our GDP will be like this, our output agriculturally will be this many million tons, that we will no longer import this and we have substituted it for local products, etc., etc. So whatever the undertaking is, whatever you are trying to do, whatever you are initiating, that will determine which areas you go to. And that's why you cannot just say, as president, I will go fix these 3 regions, only these 3 regions. Well, you can do that, but that's not so. That doesn't help nation building. That's usually a political response to where I did well. Malakas ako dito, tulungan natin. We should of course, tumatanaw tayo ng utang na loob, but we still have to think in terms of the greater good, the national interest, the nation building, and that's what will determine where development, where public investment should go.
Hello to all our subscribers. Filipino Future is now on YouTube Shorts. Please check our videos and share them. Thank you.